I never meant to stay that long. It started with something ordinary, dropping into the small bookstore cafe at the corner of Maple. I'd been going there almost every afternoon, pretending I was looking for a new book, but really just needing a place that didn't feel like the walls of my apartment. The same chipped mug, the same seat near the window, the same notebook with pages I never filled. She worked there part-time, though I don't think she needed the job. Mid-40s maybe, quiet presence, the kind of person who didn't force small talk. I learned more about her from what she didn't say than anything she did. The first time I noticed her noticing me was small. She handed me my coffee and, without looking down, said, "Still oat milk, right?" I hadn't ordered yet. I froze a second too long. "Yeah," I said, softer than I meant. Her mouth curved, not a full smile, more like she was amused at catching me off guard. And then it was gone, like she hadn't done anything unusual. After that, I caught myself timing my visits to when she worked. Not on purpose, I told myself. Just coincidence. But I started to notice details. How she wiped her hands on a folded napkin before sliding books back into place, how her earrings were always mismatched, like she didn't care enough to find the pair. One afternoon, rain tapped against the windows. The place was almost empty. She leaned against the counter, scrolling through her phone, until she noticed me hesitating over which seat to take. "Windows leaking," she said, nodding toward the table I usually claimed. I shifted to the next one over. "You saved me." Her eyes flicked up, steady, but not in a way that pinned me. Just seeing. Someone has to. It should have ended there. A harmless exchange. But my chest stayed tight the whole time, like I was holding a thought I couldn't let out. I scribbled in my notebook, though I wasn't really writing. More like drawing loops over and over, filling the margin. She passed by, refilling sugar jars, and her hand brushed my table lightly, almost by accident. "You always stare that hard at empty pages." I laughed, embarrassed. "They're less judgmental than full ones." She gave a dry little hum, the kind that sounded like agreement but also like she knew more than she was letting on. The hours slipped. I should have left. Instead, I lingered until chairs were being stacked. She locked the front door and found me still there, packing my bag too slowly. "You live close?" she asked. 2 blocks. "That explains it," she said. No explanation followed. I stood by the door, awkward with the weight of words I didn't say. She leaned against the counter, folding that napkin over and over, eyes not quite meeting mine. "Well," I started, my voice thinner than I wanted. "Guess I'll head out." Her head tilted, tiny motion, like she was deciding something. And then she said it, soft but clear, like it had been waiting under her tongue. "You're safe here. Stay." The words hit differently than an invitation. They didn't sound like flirting, not even kindness in the usual sense. More like she'd recognized something. Loneliness maybe, or the way I hovered at thresholds too long. I froze with my bag half-sipped. Outside, the rain kept steady against the glass. Inside, silence stretched, her eyes steady on mine, waiting. And that was the moment I realized. I wasn't sure if leaving would be easier, or if staying would undo me completely. I stayed. Not long, at least, not long enough for it to feel like a decision. Just long enough for her to pour tea into 2 mismatched mugs, sliding one toward me without asking. Steam curled between us. "You don't like sweet things, do you?" she asked, stirring hers absent-mindedly. I blinked. "How'd you know?" "You never take sugar. Some people don't change their habits." She said it like it carried weight. Like she wasn't just talking about tea. We sat in silence, both pretending to be comfortable with it. My fingers traced the chipped edge of the mug. I wanted to say something ordinary, anything to fill the air, but instead what slipped out was, "I thought you were married." She glanced at me, sharp for a second, then soft. "Divorced. 3 years. A pause. My son's your age." The word settled heavy between us. There it was, the line. I almost wished she hadn't said it, because now I couldn't unknow it. "Sorry," I said quickly. She shook her head. "Don't be. It's not a secret. Just a fact. I didn't answer. I stared at the steam rising, trying not to imagine her son sitting across from her instead of me. I should have left then. Told her thank you for the tea, good night, walked out into the rain. But my legs didn't move. Instead, I asked the wrong question. Do you miss it? Being married? Her eyes narrowed, not unkind, just measuring. Then she let out a dry laugh. What I miss is not having to fix the damn sink myself. I smiled before I could stop myself. The joke landed, but there was a flicker behind it, like she meant more than she said. She noticed my smile, and something shifted in her gaze, warmer, or maybe just longer. I looked down, heat rushing to my neck. Come on, she said, standing. Since you're staying, you can help me move this box. Too heavy for me. We carried it together into the back, both pretending it was just a task. The box wasn't that heavy. She could have managed. Our hands brushed when we set it down, and neither of us pulled back immediately. Just an extra second, small, invisible to anyone else, but loud to me. Thanks, she murmured, withdrawing first. I nodded, words stuck somewhere between my chest and throat. We returned to the counter. She folded another napkin, always folding, as if she needed something to do with her hands. I wanted to tell her I liked the silence, that it felt different than being alone in my apartment. But all I said was, "It's late." She didn't ask me to stay this time, but she didn't rush me out either. When I finally stood, she walked me to the door. My hand hovered near the knob, hers close enough that the air felt charged between us. She didn't move, didn't break eye contact. Just the faintest curve at the corner of her mouth. It wasn't a smile, not exactly. More like a permission. And somehow, that meant more than if she'd said anything at all. The next time I saw her, it wasn't planned. I was walking past the bookstore, hands shoved in my pockets, when her voice carried through the half-open door. Not to me, she was talking to someone else. A friend, maybe? Laughter, softer than usual. I almost kept walking. But she saw me through the glass. You again, she called, smiling just enough. I stepped inside, suddenly self-conscious. Just passing. She said, as if she didn't believe me. Her friend glanced at me, eyebrows raised, then leaned closer to her. Whispered something. They both laughed again, though this time her smile was tighter. I pretended to browse. My heart thudded louder than it should have. When her friend finally left, she lingered at the door a second too long, watching me. Then she turned, voice low. She thinks I'm... She stopped. Shook her head. Never mind. What? Nothing. But her hands were restless, straightening books that didn't need straightening. I leaned against the counter. She thinks what? Her eyes flicked up sharp, then softened. That I spend too much time talking to you. The silence after that stretched. My throat tightened. And do you? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted the answer. Her mouth opened, then closed. She looked past me, out the window, like the question was too sharp to touch. I almost apologized. Instead, I added, because I don't mind. Her gaze snapped back to mine. Something unspoken passed between us, heavier than the words we weren't saying. Then, just like that, she broke it, stepping back, reaching for the kettle. Tea? I nodded, grateful for the distraction. But the space between us felt charged now, every movement deliberate. She slid the mug toward me, fingers brushing mine, and I held on to the warmth longer than I needed. We sat in the quiet, her at the counter, me at the table closest to her. She folded another napkin. I tapped the rim of my cup. Neither of us spoke, but the silence wasn't empty, it pressed in, thick, like something about to spill. The bell over the door jingled. A man walked in, older, maybe a regular. He greeted her easily, asked about a book on hold. She slipped into conversation smoothly, polite, professional. But I saw it, the way she kept glancing at me, just quick flicks of her eyes. The way she didn't fold a napkin while he was there. When he left, The quiet returned heavier than before. "You should go," she said finally, not looking at me. The words stung, sharper than I expected. I stood, lingering by the counter. "Do you want me to?" Her hands froze. She looked up slowly, eyes searching mine. For a second, I thought she'd answer. Instead, she reached out, lightly touched my sleeve, barely there. It should have been nothing. A casual brush, accidental. But it burned through the fabric, sent my breath short. We stood like that, suspended. Her hand half withdrawn, my body half leaning in. Close enough that a single breath more would have closed the distance. And then, she let go. It was late again. The shop had closed, the streets almost empty. She locked the door, keys jangling softly, and we walked out together without planning to. Side by side, quiet steps in the cool air. I shoved my hands in my jacket pockets, trying not to look as restless as I felt. She carried nothing, arms folded loosely, like she was holding herself in. Half a block passed before she spoke. "You were quiet today." "Was I?" Her tone wasn't accusing, more curious, like she was testing the air. I hesitated. "Your friend, the other day." "What she said?" Her shoulders tightened almost imperceptibly. "Forget it." "I can't." She glanced at me then, sharp, then away. "People talk. It's what they do." The words should have brushed off easily. But they didn't. "You care what they say?" I asked. She stopped walking. Turned toward me. Streetlight caught her face, lit the tired lines at the corners of her mouth. "Of course I care." I swallowed. "About what they think, or about what you feel?" The silence that followed felt raw, too naked. She looked at me like I'd peeled something back I shouldn't have. "I don't know what I feel," she said finally. The honesty in it hurt more than anything else could have. We started walking again, slower now. The silence pressed heavy. I almost dropped it. Almost let the night close over us. But something in me frayed. "You know," I said, voice rougher than I intended, "sometimes I wait before coming in. Just to see if you're there. I don't even want the coffee anymore." She stopped again, this time fully turning, arms tightening around herself. Her eyes searched mine, hard, then soft, then uncertain. "You shouldn't tell me that," she whispered. "Why not?" "Because it's not fair." I stepped closer without meaning to, close enough to see the faint tremor in her hands. "Fair to who?" Her breath caught, and for the first time, she didn't look away. "To you. To me. To everyone who'd misunderstand this." The space between us felt thin, fragile. One wrong word and it would shatter. "Maybe they'd misunderstand," I said, quieter now. "Or maybe they'd see it clearer than we do." Her eyes flicked down, then back up. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "Don't," she said finally, voice almost breaking. "Don't make me say something I can't take back." I wanted to tell her I already knew. That the silence between us had said more than words ever could. Instead, I just stood there, the night buzzing faintly with everything unsaid. Her hand lifted, hesitated in the air between us, half a motion toward me, half a retreat. The pause stretched. And then she whispered, barely audible, "What are we doing?" The next week, she wasn't there. Same hours, same corner seat by the window. But when I pushed the cafe door open, it wasn't her behind the counter. Someone younger, college-age maybe, smiled politely, asked for my order. I mumbled something, sat anyway. The seat across from me felt too empty, the silence too light without her folding napkins, without her steady presence. I told myself she was sick. Or busy. Or maybe just had a different shift. But then a second day passed. And a third. When she finally returned, she didn't look at me the same. Her eyes skimmed past like I was another customer. No small jokes, no remembering how I take my coffee. Just the order, slid across the counter, her hands never brushing mine. I almost said something. Almost asked why. But the words stuck. Instead, I lingered longer than I should have, hoping she'd soften. She didn't. That night, lying in bed, I scrolled through old messages I'd never sent to anyone. Little drafts that started with "you there?" or "today felt strange without you." Half thoughts, unfinished. I nearly typed her name, just to see if my phone would stop feeling so heavy. But I deleted it before the screen dimmed. 2 days later, I saw her outside, walking fast with her head down, phone pressed to her ear. She didn't notice me. But I noticed the way her voice cracked as she said, "No, I told you, he doesn't live here anymore." I froze. Followed with my eyes until she disappeared into the street. An ex. A son. A piece of her life I didn't fit into. Suddenly, everything made sense. The distance, the pause, the wall she'd pulled back up. I should have let it be. Should have respected the shift. But the next night, I passed by the cafe again, slowed at the door. My hand hovered at the handle. I didn't go in. Inside, through the glass, I saw her at the counter folding napkins, movements sharper than usual. A mug of tea sat half-finished beside her. She looked up once, briefly. Our eyes met. And then she looked away. I turned, walked home in silence, every step heavier than the last. Later, sitting at my desk, I opened my notebook. The page from last week still held the loops I'd drawn, spiraling into nothing. I added a few more circles, darker, pressing harder into the paper. I wrote one line beneath it, stopped halfway, then crossed it out. The phone lit up in the corner. I typed, "You don't have to push me away. I'm already here." But I didn't send it. I closed my eyes, letting the screen go dark again. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused. Like life forgot to finish the sentence that it was late when I finally knocked. Not planned. Not brave. Just tired of circling the silence. She opened the door slowly, hair pulled back, sweater loose, the smell of tea faint behind her. Surprise flickered across her face, then something else, resignation maybe. "You shouldn't be here," she said. "I know." But she didn't close the door. I stepped inside carefully, like the air itself might break if I moved too fast. The kitchen light was dim, casting soft shadows. She went back to the counter, folding another napkin, though there was already a small pile stacked neatly beside her. I stood there, waiting for words that wouldn't come. Finally I said, "I didn't want to keep not saying it." Her hand stilled. She didn't look at me. "Don't. I have to." The quiet stretched, heavy, unbearable. I swallowed hard. "I don't know what this is, or if it even makes sense. But when I'm here, I don't feel." I cut myself off. Couldn't finish. Her voice was almost a whisper. "Don't feel what?" "Alone." She closed her eyes like the word hurt. When she opened them, they glistened. She turned then, leaning back against the counter, arms crossed. "You're too young," she said flatly. "I'm not asking for forever." Her lips parted, but no sound came. She shook her head slowly. "It's not just age. It's everything. My son. My past. The mess I carry. You don't deserve to step into that." I took a breath. "Maybe I get to decide what I can handle." That broke something. She laughed, soft and sad, pressing her fingers to her forehead. "God, you sound just like him." "Who?" "My ex. When he still wanted to try." The admission hung raw in the room. She let her hand fall, finally meeting my eyes. "I can't. I don't want to hurt you." "You already have," I said gently. "By pretending you don't care." Her mouth trembled, like the words she wanted to deny wouldn't come. She looked down, then back up, eyes steady but fragile. "I do care," she said. Quiet. Final. It was the first time she'd said anything close to it out loud. We stood in that tiny kitchen, every unsaid thing finally bare between us. The hum of the refrigerator, the tick of the clock, our breaths out of sync. I stepped closer. Not all the way. Just close enough that if she wanted to reach, she could. Her hand twitched, then lifted, fingers brushing mine lightly, barely there. A touch so small it almost wasn't one. But it was enough. Neither of us moved more than that. Neither of us needed to. She exhaled shakily, almost like surrender. Then, softly, she said, "Okay." It didn't happen all at once. No declarations. No sudden shift into something perfect. Just time, steady and ordinary, smoothing the edges we'd both been holding so tight. I still came by the cafe, though less like someone searching, more like someone arriving. Some mornings she'd already have my cup waiting, black coffee, oat milk, no sugar. Some nights I stayed after closing, sitting in the same chair while she counted the till, both of us content to let the silence say more than conversation could. Once, we walked to the park together after she locked up. Same bench as before. It was nearly empty, air cool, the clock on the square tower chiming 8:47 p.m. She laughed when I noticed the time, said I was too young to fixate on details like that. But later, I caught her glancing at her phone screen, checking it twice. Her son came by once. Taller than me, a little older. He shook my hand, polite but distant. She watched the exchange carefully, but didn't interfere. Later, when he left, she only said, "Thank you for not forcing it." I understood what she meant. Some things can't be rushed. It was never easy. Some days she pulled back, lost in her own thoughts, folding napkins until her hands ached. Some days I wanted to ask too much, to make her name what we were. But mostly, we learned how to stay. To sit with the unfinished sentences, the quiet trust that what wasn't said still mattered. And slowly, life bent itself around us. She taught me how to fix the old sink that always leaked in the back room. I showed her how to use the new phone her son bought, though she pretended she didn't need the help. We shared groceries sometimes, half laughing over mismatched shopping lists. She'd leave an apple in my bag when I wasn't looking. I'd leave my jacket on her chair, knowing she'd wear it when the nights got cold. One evening, I caught her staring at me while I scribbled in my notebook. She didn't look away when I noticed. Just said, "Not so empty anymore." I closed the book, slid it across the table, let her read the half-sentences, the scribbles and circles. She smiled faintly, touched the page, then left it open between us. We never needed to say the words. We just kept showing up, day after day, cup after cup, the rhythm of something that wasn't perfect but was ours. And every now and then, when I reached for my coffee and found her hand there first, she'd give me that quiet look, the one only I seemed to understand. Like the answer to a question we'd stopped asking. Sparkles, did this story stay with you? What kind of quiet, real love stories do you want to hear next?